If you want to see a grown man look as though someone just suggested he trade his orchids for a pair of roller skates, you need only catch Nero Wolfe being interrupted between 4 and 6 in the afternoon. Those are the sacred hours when he ascends to the plant rooms, as inviolable as a cardinal in conclave. So when the doorbell rang at 4:17, I prepared myself for what you might call a professional skirmish. I went to the door, ready to shoo away whoever had miscalculated the odds of survival. It turned out to be a woman, late 30s, tailored grey suit, and the sort of expression you see on people who've already decided your refusal isn't going to matter. She introduced herself as Dana Lowell, and her voice had the clipped, decisive tone of someone used to running meetings and cutting them short. I gave her the once-over, the kind Wolfe likes me to do, and decided she wasn't here to sell magazine subscriptions. "I need to speak to Mr. Wolfe," she said, brushing past me like I was a coat rack. "It's urgent." "Lady," I said, "everything's urgent until it isn't." But barging into Nero Wolfe's house at this hour is like trying to light a cigarette at a gas station. I don't recommend it. She stopped in the hall and looked back at me. "It's about sabotage and an alibi someone's using to ruin me." That was enough to keep me from tossing her straight back to West 35th Street. I've learned to recognize the kind of trouble that grows legs. Still, I gave her the facts. Mr. Wolfe is communing with his orchids. You can sit here and cool your heels until 6 o'clock, or I can walk you back down the steps and you can try your luck later. Instead of arguing, she did something Wolfe would later call tactical patience. She sat, crossed her legs, and folded her hands in a way that said she could outlast both me and the orchids if necessary. So I left her there, called Fritz to bring tea, and went back to my desk, pretending to ignore her while making mental notes. At 6 sharp, Wolfe descended like a mountain returning from exile. I gave him the situation in 6 words. "Lady, sabotage. Alibi. Wants your brain." He frowned. An expression that meant a disruption had gotten far enough under his skin that he couldn't ignore it. Wolfe's policy is to avoid entanglements unless there's money, malice, or a challenge involved. I figured we'd soon find out which box Miss Lowell checked. "Bring her in," he said. Dana Lowell entered, stood straight as a court witness, and delivered her pitch without preamble. She was COO of a software firm. Yes, even Wolfe gets clients who belong more to the electronic than the botanical. Someone had accused her of triggering a kill switch in a rival system, wiping out a project worth millions. The rival claimed to have proof she'd been present when it happened. Her alibi, though, was too neat, too suspicious. "I didn't do it," she said, "but the story's been arranged so that every fact points to me. If I can't disprove it, I'll lose everything. My company, my reputation, maybe even my freedom." Wolfe laced his fingers on his vast middle. "And why, madam, should I undertake this inconvenience?" "Because," she said, with a steadiness that made me blink, "whoever set me up started by planting something in your house. Yesterday, that's how I know you're already in it." That made Wolfe's eyebrows twitch. As far as I know, only earthquakes, tax collectors, and orchid pests have ever gotten that reaction. For my part, I felt the temperature in the room rise a few degrees, because if what she said was true, the brownstone itself had already been disturbed, and that, in our world, meant the game had just walked in and sat down. I didn't ask her how she knew something had been planted here. I asked Wolfe, with my eyebrows, whether we were entertaining this at all. He closed his eyes a moment, the way a man does when he's reshelving his irritation where it belongs, and opened them on me. "Mr. Goodwin, ascertain whether our house has been used." That was our version of sound general quarters. I started with the office because if you're going to counterfeit a connection with Nero Wolfe, his stationery, seal, and typewriter are the easiest tools to reach for. The desk looked as respectable as an old judge. I know that top the way Fritz knows the pantry, and either the dust had learned to rearrange itself or someone had been entrepreneurial. The Remington sat innocent and smug. I pulled the sheet out of it. Blank, but the ribbon was new since morning. I hadn't changed it. Fritz hasn't touched a typewriter since he tried to mail order a goose in 1941. I lifted the cover. The ribbon's spool was a shade darker and off-brand. "Fritz," I called. His footfall from the hall told me he had wiped his hands first. He does that in case he has to touch anything that isn't copper, steel, or edible. "Deliveries yesterday afternoon." "Only a crate of asparagus," he said, as if asparagus were an accusation. "From Klinger's, but I did not order it. The man brought it at 3:50. He insisted the paper said here, and since it would be a sin—" I looked at Wolfe. He twitched 2 fingers, which in our code means, "Go on." To Dana Lowell, "You propose our premises were entered at approximately 4 yesterday, madam." Her gaze didn't budge. "Between 3:30 and 4. I received an email at 5:30 from a throwaway account attaching a photo of your office, your desk specifically, with a slip on it acknowledging a consultation. The timestamp on the image metadata reads 4:09. My name is on the slip. So is yours. I was on a conference call in my office from 3 to 5. 5 other people can attest. But the accusation doesn't care. The story is that I sought you out to construct an alibi and trigger a kill switch remotely while pretending to be advised by you." "Pui," Wolfe said gently. "You mistake me for a fig leaf. If I were to launder reputations, I would require larger basins." "I figured," she said. "But the photo exists, and they don't need you to have actually done anything, Mr. Wolfe. They just need a trail that makes me look like I did." I went at the wastebasket with my fingers because subtlety was already out the window. The top layer was as it had been when I tossed a subscription flyer at lunch, but down 2 inches was the tail of a carbon sheet. I fished it out and held it to the light. Carbon paper carries the sins of yesterday with style. In reverse, but legible, was "Received of Dana Lowell. Consultation fee, $5,000, 3:30 p.m. Nero Wolfe." There was no signature depression. Whoever typed it had been content to let the name stand by itself. I passed it to Wolfe. His mouth made that straight line it reserves for fried eggs served cold and counterfeiters of his habits. "The ribbon," he said. "Changed," I told him, "and the wastebasket didn't do it. Obviously." He turned the carbon over delicately and gestured me to the side drawer where we keep a pad of onion skin. "Impressions," he murmured. "If you've never seen a 300-pound man perform a delicate demonstration of mechanics, you've missed a cultural experience." I set a fresh sheet, rolled it through the Remington, then backed it out and shaded it with a soft pencil. "Ghosts rose." The exact lines in the exact spacing of the receipt text, typed recently enough that the Platen still remembered the pressure. I didn't need to admire the handiwork to respect the nerve. Whoever had come hadn't rifled. They had come to leave, not take. "Fritz," Wolfe said without heat. "The asparagus?" "In the kitchen at once, sir. I placed it in the refrigerator. The man asked that I sign. I did. He stood inside the doorway while I fetched a pen. And the door remained open." "Yes, sir. Only for a moment." A moment is 7 eternities in this house if the wrong soul is counting. Wolfe turned to Dana Lowell. "You said kill switch. I infer a function that disables a software system when a condition is met." "Yes. Our competitor's beta failed at noon yesterday. By 3, someone flipped a dormant routine on a secondary server that cascaded a shutdown and corrupted backups. They're saying I injected the routine weeks ago and timed it for yesterday, then covered myself by making it appear I was in your office, on your advice, because appearing to consult me would suggest prudence rather than malice," Wolfe said. "An artful smear." He squeezed his eyes shut again, only briefly. "Why you?" Because I refuse to acquire them on their terms, and because I used to work there. I know their infrastructure, I know their egos. Names, Wolfe said. And it wasn't a request. She gave 4, clean and quick. Coleman Vire, the CEO with a smile like a stainless appliance. Lena Park, chief of product, once her friend. Jonah Rusk, security, a former Marine who treated servers like trenches. And Mark Sabin, a consultant whose invoice always ended in 7s and whose shirts never did. Each, she said, had a reason to prefer her ruined rather than resisting. Archie, Wolfe said, retrieve the asparagus crate and the delivery slip. Fritz, bring it. Fritz went. I watched Dana while Wolfe watched nothing and everything. She didn't fidget. She belonged to the breed that grows taller when pressed. That can be admirable or a terrific nuisance, depending on the truth. Fritz returned with a flattened crate lid and a yellow slip. The lid bore Klinger's stamp. The slip did too. The handwriting was an attempt at my charming scrawl, but it suffered from honesty. Mine has practice. This had fear. The G in Goodwin kinked wrong. Time, 3:52. Recipient, F. Brenner. Fritz shook his head in mortification, and Wolfe cut it short with a small motion. Someone misused hospitality? Wolfe said. And if that sounded like a mild phrase, you don't know the penalty scale. Madam, your adversaries intend that I should deny knowledge while they flourish an artifact. That is intolerable. Archie, go to Klinger's. Determine the origin of the order, who prepared the crate, who dispatched the man, and whether any employee has an affection for asparagus they cannot explain. Also, secure the driver's description. After that, visit Miss Lowell's office and confirm her conference call. Get names, notes, metadata, the lot. Take the cab. Yes, sir, I said. Do I also pick up a bouquet for the intruder if I find him? Not yet. For now, we will accept his present and return one of our own in due course. He directed his gaze to Dana. You will remain available. Use my telephone in the front room to inform your office that Mr. Goodwin is coming. Say nothing of me. And if I ask the obvious, I said, are we in or are we only offended? We are affronted, Wolfe said, and affronts are actionable. If this is a contrivance to embed you here to serve as an alibi, madam, then whoever contrived it is both impertinent and inept. I dislike both qualities. Go, Archie. I grabbed hat and coat. As I passed Dana, she gave me a look that asked whether we were a bet worth placing. I gave her one back that said we never wagered. House rules. On the stoop, the air had the thin edge of evening and the aftertaste of mischief. The brownstone door shut behind me with more weight than usual. It would be a while before it felt like our door again. Klinger's is the sort of place that sells asparagus the way a violinist sells silence, expensively and with a little condescension. The bell over the door chimed as if I owed it money. I showed the clerk the crate lid and the slip, with Fritz's counterfeit signature, and got the face they keep for customers who return pears after smelling them too long. He sent me down the aisle to a manager named Pelham, who had the build of a fire hydrant and the disposition of one under pressure. Pelham looked at the slip, then at me. We didn't send this yesterday, he said, meaning the royal we who are never wrong. When I offered to call the police to help him with his memory, he blinked and reconsidered. He went back to an office with a glass window and a calendar with tomatoes that belonged in a museum. Through the glass, I watched him thumb a clipboard the size of a serving tray, then tap a keyboard with 2 fingers that had never hurried. He returned, frowning between apology and suspicion. Order placed at 3:31, he said. Cash sale, no customer account. Rush delivery. Item, asparagus, Peruvian, 2 kilos. Courier signature. Luis? He set down the clipboard so I could admire it. The initials on the slip were LM. The handwriting wasn't Pelham's idea of art either. We pay a pool of couriers. They rotate. Luis is here evenings sometimes. Try the loading bay. I tried the loading bay. It offered crates, a pallet jack, and a boy with a Mets cap who would have sold me his grandmother for an extra break. He knew Luis. Tall, Dominican, good guy, drives a black scooter, sticker with a dragon. He took a crate out yesterday, yeah, came back 10 minutes later mad because the guy made him wait on the stoop. The guy? The boy shrugged at the world's indifference. Customer, I guess. 10 minutes, maybe a little more. Luis said the door opened, a man took the crate, then Luis had to sign some paper he didn't like. You know how it is? I did. What did the man look like? Suit, but not expensive. 30, 35. Clean haircut, dark hair, had a bag like a messenger bag. Luis said he smelled like lemon something, you know, like hand sanitizer. I took Luis's full name and number and promised to call instead of sending the draft board. It wouldn't get me a confession, but it might get me a dragon sticker. On my way out, Pelham called after me that he would be reviewing procedures. I told him to teach his couriers that stoops are not waiting rooms and pushed through to the street. At the curb, I called Dana's office. A brisk voice named Mia answered and confirmed that Miss Lowell had instructed them to expect me. I should come directly to the conference room. I told the cab to stop shilly-shallying and got there at 7:10. Dana's outfit lived on a floor where glass walls confessed your thoughts before you had them. The receptionist had a smile that required less electricity than the light fixtures and waved me through to a room where a wall screen showed yesterday's calendar like a confession. From 3 to 5, the slot read, Strategy Sync, Parallax. 5 dots of faces were aligned beside it: Dana, Lena Park, Coleman Vire, Jonah Rusk, and a legal counsel named Rena Dare. Mia, who had the efficiency of a metronome, queued up the recording. I listened to 30 seconds, enough to hear Dana's voice at 3:34 discussing resource allocation and Vire's at 4:03 suggesting a push to next quarter. The time codes matched the server clock, and the metadata showed a single continuous stream with no gaps that a prosecutor could drive a bulldozer through. Pull the participant logs, I said, and Mia printed a page that smelled like new decisions. IP addresses, device IDs, join and leave times. No one had dropped off and snuck back. That didn't prove innocence to the religiously suspicious, but it made guilt earn its living. I asked to meet the human beings behind the dots. Dana was in the building, the rest were not. She came in wearing the day like she'd negotiated a truce with it. I told her the asparagus courier was real and had been made to wait. The crate had served as a docking pass. We keep a security feed on the front, she said. I can ask my team to pull the street camera at your block. Do that, I said. Meanwhile, I want impressions. I like data fine, but people still commit the crimes. She gave them to me, tidy and unadorned. Coleman Vire, the CEO, had the charm of a man who never had to out-argue his reflection. He wanted her company on the cheap and thought saying it nicely made it generous. Lena Park had been her friend until promotion and proximity to Vire turned friendship into climate control, adjustable at the touch of a finger. Jonah Rusk, head of security, believed in two-factor authentication for doorways and relationships. He and Dana had disagreed loudly about whether acceptable risk included human beings. Rena Dare, counsel, had the precision of a scalpel and the bedside manner of one. And Mark Sabin, I asked. Independent consultant. He wanders between companies like a roomer with a briefcase. He did code review for us last year, for Parallax, the competitor, this spring. Her mouth went a shade flatter. He's talented and likes to be owed. Did you pay him with gratitude or currency? Both, she said. He always prefers the former, because it compounds. I asked for the alibi within the alibi. At 5:30, you received the photo of Wolfe's desk. Who else saw it? No one. I forwarded it to my personal archive for what that's worth and deleted it. I came to you today. I didn't want to name you in an email chain that might leak. The account that sent it was burned. I had Mia try to trace headers. Nothing. But there was a line in the message. You should think twice before weaponizing gentlemen. That's a new category for us, I said. We prefer to remain unweaponized. I asked Mia to print the email raw source. She did, and I saw the usual laundromat of relays. One hop, though, was a local co-working address 3 blocks from Klinger's. It could be coincidence. It could be choreography. Dana watched me watch the page. You think they used your house so that any denial from you looks like self-protection, she said. I think they used my house because they wanted you to come, I said. If you come to me, and then they show the world that you did, their story grows roots. The trick required a specific reaction. You're giving it. Her eyes held. And will you give them yours? Wolfe will, I said. He radios me from a chair and expects the landscape to move. If he decides to twitch, mountains tremble. Meanwhile, I want faces. Can your friend with the scalpel and your friend with the thermostat see me in the morning? I'll have them there, she said. Good. And one more thing. Your building's lobby. Cameras. Multiple. Why? Because around 4 yesterday, someone who smells like lemons waited on our stoop, then entered our hall under pretense of delivering vegetables. If he had a partner, they were already inside, or they followed a minute later. She nodded once and called Mia without taking her eyes off me. Pull the 3:20 to 4:30 block from the lobby cams yesterday, she said, and get ready to send a copy to Mr. Goodwin. I left with the printouts rolled in my pocket and the sense that I was walking along a line someone else had painted. Back on the sidewalk, the evening had deepened into that blue that makes city light look honest. I called Wolfe to report. He listened without interrupting, which meant he was cooking something that didn't involve heat. When I finished, he asked only, "Did you touch the Remington's ribbon with bare fingers, Archie?" "Indeed not," I said. "Gloves and the pure heart of a choir boy." "Excellent. Return. The ribbon has offered a courtesy we should not refuse." I made it back in 20 and found Wolfe where he belongs, when civilization tries to wobble, behind his desk with his forearms planted, not to keep the world from tipping, but to make it regret the attempt. He had the Remington's hood up and the new ribbon spooled like a patient on a gurney. Beside it sat 2 manila envelopes, open, and a magnifier that hadn't seen this much action since a forger tried to make his signature spell Nero Wolfe. "Your courtesy?" I asked. He nodded at the spools. The malefactor, in his haste or complacency, did not wear gloves. Mr. Goodwin, attend. He touched the metal core with a pencil tip. Sebum, we shall not attempt the melodrama of dusting. We will preserve and delegate. Moreover, the price label. Observe. The label was the size of a postage stamp and uglier. It read Stenotex number 52-Rem BK-$7.95, and below that, in smaller type, Near 2. It wasn't a brand Fritz would have allowed on a dining table or any table. Wolfe cocked an eyebrow. Retail clerk shorthand. A chain, likely local. They affixed it crookedly. Haste again. He also left the original wrapper in the bottom of our wastebasket. Wolfe extracted a strip of cellophane with a serrated tear. A smear of something clear and acrid made my nose wrinkle. Citrus, I said. Our stoop guest's cologne of choice. Not cologne, Wolfe murmured. Sanitizer, the strand of our century. He tapped the second envelope. The carbon from the basket, the onion skin impressions you developed, and this ribbon will go out presently. Not to the police, to a man who will not offend me with guesses. But first, you will fetch the origin of Near 2. I phoned 3 stationers within a mile who carried off-brand ribbons. The third, Neary's stationers on 9th, answered to NEAR without apology. Their clerk, a baritone named Walt, who lisped at prices and stiffened at questions, told me -2 was their Midtown branch. He volunteered it before I threatened to buy a fountain pen. "Yesterday afternoon?" I asked. "A gentleman bought Remington ribbon, stenotext number 52, and a pack of carbon." Silence while he consulted a register the size of a family Bible. "2 spools, black, 1 royal blue carbon pack, onion skin 25 sheet, all cash. Timestamp 2:56 p.m. He cleared his throat. He also asked if we had any self-adhesive price tags. "For personal use," he said. "We do not sell them to the public." "Describe him like you're mad at him," I suggested. 30s, clean hair, side part, blue suit that wanted to be better. He kept rubbing his hands. Smelled like lemon cleanser. Messenger bag. He asked whether the ribbon fit a Remington that preferred thicker stock, which is a phrase only someone trying to sound like a typist would risk. "Did he give a name he intends to keep?" Walt snorted. "If he did, he whispered it into the cash drawer." I thanked him with promises I didn't intend to keep and rang off. Wolfe received the news with a small incline of the head, a gesture that has greeted the downfall of dukes and busboys. He dictated a brief note to accompany the envelopes. Short sentences, no compliments. Then sealed them with a strip of tape as if it offended him to cooperate with adhesives. "Deliver to Mr. Panzer," he said. "He will have them lifted, photographed, and compared. He will also, for his own edification, ghost Nery's and our street. I will summon him after dinner. For now, your email." Mine? The raw source Miss Lowell provided. "You noticed, I presume, the co-working hop 3 blocks from Klinger's. It may be an innocent relay. It may be vanity. In either case, the man rubbed his hands and left his scent. He will rub his habits also. You will visit. Tonight?" "Briefly," he said. "After you watch a short film." He meant the lobby footage. My phone chimed, obedient for once. Mia had sent a link with all the enthusiasm of a dentist. I opened it on my screen and set it on his blotter. 3:47 p.m. A man in a messenger bag enters Dana's building, scanned by a camera that didn't care who he wanted to be. He goes to the elevators and waits without pressing a button, then moves to a bench and fiddles with a phone. 3:58. He exits, checks something in his bag. A thin box, then disappears toward the street. No lemon hologram waves hello, but his movements match the description a little too faithfully. "Too cautious for Vire," I said. "Too public for Dare. Too almost careful for Rusk. Sabin likes to be seen, but not doing errands." I kept my voice level. You don't throw darts at silhouettes when Wolfe is measuring them. "And Miss Park?" Wolfe asked. "She'd hire someone who convinced her this was strategic, and she would not risk looking like a courier." He let it rest a moment, then, "Our interloper bought a ribbon, a carbon, onion skin, and sought price stickers. He needed our office to type a receipt and leave its shadow. He wanted a picture and a time. He required the asparagus as a Trojan crate, and he chose the hour to coincide with Miss Lowell's conversation, which someone knew about in advance. This suggests either leak or surveillance. The lemon?" He spread a hand. "I distrust garnish." "So do I." "Too neat." I pocketed the phone. "Do you want me to collect a dragon scooter on 9th Avenue after I check the co-working palace?" "No, Archie. We are not yet collecting. We are arranging. Go look at their lobby, look at their desk, talk to the concierge without interrogating him, smell the air, then come home." "Yes, sir," I said. "If I bring home a brochure about flexible office solutions, will you forgive me?" He closed his eyes and let the weight of the world balance itself. "Bring me an answer," he said, "or bring me a better question." The co-working address was 3 floors above a coffee shop that believed espresso should come with a manifesto. The lobby had a chalkboard announcing "Hack Night" in letters that tried too hard. The desk attendant wore a cardigan, and the practiced indifference of young men who have seen too many entrepreneurs. I asked about day passes. held the brochure like it mattered, and let my eyes float. The sanitizer pump on the counter was half empty. The air was lemon bright. On a side table sat a stack of price tag guns with a sign, "Members, label your storage bins." The tags were the same ugly cousins as our ribbon label. "Busy yesterday?" I asked casually. "Always," he said. With a yawn he apologized by not apologizing. "Why?" "Because sometimes I like to know whether a person who smells like a cleaning aisle sat here for an hour and used your Wi-Fi." He smirked. "Sir, that's the brand." I took the brochure, the smell, and a mental picture of a shelf of office supplies that included Stenotex number 52. Back on the sidewalk, I phoned Wolfe. "Our hop has lemon in its veins and sells price tags to children. They stock our ribbon brand." "Good," he said. "Come home. We will irritate our quarry by depriving him of his next step. He expects us to disclaim. Instead, we will invite." He paused, and the pause had teeth. "Tomorrow at 11, Archie, we will have callers. See that Miss Lowell's circle receives polite summonses. This house has been trespassed upon. We will return the civility." I spent the next hour on the phone delivering invitations with the kind of courtesy that makes people show up even when they plan not to. Coleman Vire's assistant tried to screen him. I told her the appointment was with the facts, which weren't taking messages. Vire came on, smooth as a marble countertop, and accepted 11 o'clock with a laugh that said he'd be late on principle. Lena Park answered herself and said of course, in a tone that could mean anything from genuine curiosity to a trap laid with gardenias. Jonah Rusk didn't waste syllables. Address? ID required? And hung up after I told him he'd be entering a private residence, not a bunker. Mark Sabin let his phone ring long enough to write a novella, then oozed affability and asked whether he should bring background material. I told him to bring his conscience if he could find it. Saul arrived at 8:30 with the envelopes and a face that meant he had eaten a problem for dinner and wanted dessert. Wolfe allowed him in with the same hospitality he extends to a corkscrew when a bottle is breathing. "Ribbon Core has 3 decent latents. 1 partial," Saul said, taking a seat on the red leather as if it were a witness. "No match in my files yet. The cellophane has sanitizer residues, lemon, ethanol heavy, plus a micro-scratch pattern on the torn edge like it was cut against a metal lip. Neary's Midtown's tag gun leaves a distinctive burr on the price stickers where the third tooth is misaligned. The sticker on your spool has it. I visited their -2 branch. The gun sits under the counter to the right and quits every 5th trigger. The clerk says 2 customers yesterday complained about it. I've got names." "Get me the 2, Wolfe said. "Working. Also, I found Luis. Good kid. He remembers waiting at your stoop and a second person joining the suit for 30 seconds. Woman, herringbone coat, dark hair up, sunglasses even in shade. He didn't notice her face, but he noticed her shoes. He says they squeaked." "Rubber soles," Wolfe murmured. "Hospitals, labs, or people who rehearse their exits." Saul handed me prints he'd made from our onion skin ghosts, the receipt text clean enough to read to a jury. He had matched the line spacing to a sample from our Remington taken last week. "Same machine," he said. "You can swear to it under oath. I won't, but the spacing dance is close enough for a waltz." Wolfe steepled his fingers. "Thank you. Your retainer continues." Saul nodded once and drifted off to haunted his city. I caught the door before it latched and glanced down. A thin manila envelope sat wedged against the jamb as if it had been shy about knocking. I took it in on 2 fingers. Inside lay a glossy print, the same angle as the emailed photo of our desk, but closer. The timestamp read 4:11 p.m. In the foreground, a detail the previous shot hadn't flaunted. My pencil, the red one I keep to harass subscription cards, laid diagonally atop the blotter at a slant I never use. That wasn't a point. It was a cough. Attached with a small clip was a single line typed on onion skin. If he denies, he lies. I set it on Wolfe's blotter without comment. He looked at it, and if you want to know how a volcano looks when it decides against erupting, that was your masterclass. He didn't touch the print. He didn't have to. "Archie," he said softly, "did you leave your pencil thus?" "No," I said. "If I put it down like that, my hand would disown me." Then he encourages us to declare the image spurious and to be caught in a trifling rebuttal. He flicked the clipped line closer with a paper knife. This, too, was typed on our Remington. He wants us to speak of forgeries, to be provincial. We won't. "At 11 we won't," I said. "At 11 we will be spacious. We will allow them to believe the lie they prefer and make it useful." We let Fritz bring dinner on time. Habit is one of the brownstone's defensive measures. Spring lamb with a haricots and a walnut tart that deserved a better world than the one we were inhabiting. Wolfe ate with his customary attention. It is how he thinks. When the last tostada crumb had vanished to a good home, he wiped his mouth, pushed back exactly 3 inches, and said, "Tomorrow we will begin with courtesy and proceed to precision. Do not arrange the chairs to suggest a tribunal. This is not a courtroom, it is a mind." The night didn't bring sleep as a gift. It brought posture. I used it to sketch the order of battle. At 9:15 in the morning, Mia's package arrived by bike. 2 USB sticks with the lobby footage from Dana's building and the raw calendar logs, notarized for good measure. I locked them in the right-hand drawer and checked the office for anything that would make a guest feel at home. The only thing I left was the Remington, cleaned and covered. It had had its stage time. At 10:45, the bell rang and brought the first performance. Coleman Vire with a tan that billed by the hour and a smile he distributed like swag. He looked around our office the way men look into caves at national parks, expecting a ranger to explain stalactites. Lena Park followed on his wind, compact and composed, the kind of person who can make a chair look as if it's sitting on her. Jonah Rusk arrived alone, eyes sweeping our hall with the insult of a security professional grading your exits. Mark Sabin took last, apologizing to the air for the injustice of traffic and wearing a tie that had been offended by his shirt. Wolfe had asked for no introductions. He prefers dedication rituals to name tags. He let them sit and he let them feel the room. He left me to take their coats and give them back their faces. When Dana came in at a minute to 11, she didn't look at anyone except Wolfe, and he acknowledged her with a fraction of a nod that said she existed. That is our version of rolling out a carpet. We started not with accusations, but with hospitality. Water for those who drank it, coffee for those who believed it, chairs for those who thought they deserved them. Wolfe allowed the weather to pass. When he finally spoke, it was to remark that our house had been used for a purpose without consent, and that courtesy obliged us to invite those involved to help rectify it. Coleman did a little shrug that could mean, "Children will be children," or "I can't be responsible for how the world loves me." Jonah folded his hands and pressed his thumbs together as if he were checking for breaches in the air. Lena's gaze slid over our Remington and did not linger. Sabin smiled at it. "Mr. Vire," Wolfe said, his voice the temperature of a clear shade. "Miss Park, Mr. Rusk, Mr. Sabin, you may deny knowledge now and spend the next hour being corrected, or you may indulge me and be spared the duller refinements. We will be civil either way. I propose to begin with a fact that favors you all." They looked at him as if the statue had named them beneficiaries. He didn't hurry. He just raised a finger to me, and I set the glossy photo on the desk where they could see it and think what they liked. Then I waited with them to find out which of them would choose to speak first and why. Sabin broke first, because of course he did. He leaned forward, planted his elbows on his knees like a friendly vulture, and said, "Neat composition. Whoever staged it understands narrative, but I don't see the signature, which is the charming part of a receipt, isn't it? If I were counterfeiting Mr. Wolfe, I'd go for the flourish. Wolfe's lids drooped. If you were counterfeiting me, Mr. Sabin, I would be asleep. You are theatrical. This was domestic. He tilted his head an inch toward Vire. Sir? Vire smiled like a man unveiling a blender. I don't make a habit of breaking into private homes for marketing. If Ms. Lowell has a dispute with our firm, there are channels. Indeed, Wolfe murmured. The gutter and the boardroom. You prefer one and visit the other. Lena's voice crossed the rug without touching it. If you invited us to admire a photograph, Mr. Wolfe, it's handsome. But Dana being in your office yesterday, she wasn't. She was on our strategy call. We all heard her. Quite, Wolfe said. That is the fact that favors you. The trick was not to prove Miss Lowell came here. The trick was to prove that it didn't matter whether she did. A photograph, a typed slip, and a householder's expected denial. 3 stones arranged to look like a wall. Mr. Rusk? Rusk's eyes didn't blink. They shut, then opened, like a door checking itself. Is your lock compromised? He asked me, as if I were a door. Our lock is insulted, I said. We'll be sending flowers. Who else has keys? People who don't use asparagus as a battering ram, I told him. He shifted his stare to Wolfe. Then you're saying an impersonation, a delivery feint, a plant. Could have been anyone with nerve in 10 minutes. 2, Wolfe said mildly. 2 people and less time. The courier waited. The man entered. A woman joined him briefly. Shoes that squeaked. Rubber soles. She left first. Sabin arched a brow. You're sure it was a woman? Mr. Panzer's courier noticed what men notice when they don't intend to remember. Posture, hair, shoes. The posture told him she had learned to command a room. The hair said she meant to be unrecognized. The shoes said haste, not habit. He let it settle, and I watched Lena's fingers flatten on her skirt before she remembered they belonged to her. Dana didn't move. She was saving motion for when it might count. Wolfe tapped the photo once with a finger that hadn't touched it before. You will all be relieved to learn that I am not offering this to the police. Apart from the unseemliness of asking them to understand a typewriter, there is the small problem that my house was used to wound a guest. I prefer to handle my own splinters. Vire smiled again. And what would handling entail? Candor, Wolfe said, which you abhor. He shifted his attention like a window turning to sun. Who, among you, knew yesterday's call would run from 3 to 5? All of us, Lena said. It was on the calendar. Who else? Assistants, counsel. Legal had the link, she said, and our operations coordinator, and Jonah's team. Rusk didn't flinch. My team sees all invites. That's the job. Wolfe let a small consonant carry more weight than Vire's entire jawline. Mr. Sabin, you consult to both firms. Correct, Sabin said, gracious as a loan shark with a softer tie. Parallax last quarter. Dana's team the year prior. My conflicts are disclosed. Of course, Wolfe said. Nothing so clean as disclosed greed. He looked to Dana. Tell them your email. She kept it to the spine. At 5:30, I received the photo from a throwaway account. One relay on the route was a co-working address 3 blocks from Klinger's. The courier, who brought the asparagus, waited on Mr. Wolfe's stoop just before 4. Someone joined him briefly, the same hour as the call. Vire's smile thinned. You see conspiracy in errands and relays. That's modern life. Here we prefer older habits, Wolfe said. For example, we notice when a ribbon is changed, and when a price tag gun leaves a burr, no other gun leaves. He gestured to the Remington, still capped, as if it were an elderly witness he would not trouble to stand. The ribbon was bought at Neary's Midtown yesterday at 2:56, with onion skin and carbon. The man who bought it smelled of a lemon sanitizer sold at your co-working address. He asked whether the ribbon would suit a Remington that preferred thicker stock, a phrase he believed would make him plausible. Sabin's eyes slid sideways and back. You get a lot from a receipt. From stupidity masquerading as care, Wolfe said, and the softness of his tone put spin on it. Mr. Vire, you are impatient with procedure and addicted to admiration. You would not bend over a typewriter. Mr. Rusk, you dislike imprecision. You would have staged entrance and exit to the second. This was approximate. Miss Park. His gaze moved. You are exact until feeling intrudes. You were once precise with Miss Lowell. Are you still? Lena met him straight. I'm not your villain, Mr. Wolfe. Possibly not, he said. But you are someone's lever. And Mr. Sabin, he turned back as if he had been saving a corner piece of cake. You enjoy leaving fingerprints that aren't yours. You travel between companies as a courier of inference. Yesterday, someone like you acquired material, staged a scene, and sent an email that said, "You should think twice before weaponizing gentlemen." That line reads like your stationery. Sabin spread his hands. If it were, I'd charge for the slogan. You already have. Wolfe leaned back, filling the chair's intention for him. Let us shorten this. You will all deny knowledge. You have rehearsed it. You will say you deplore trespass. You will flatter me, and then you will go about your day and wait for Miss Lowell to bleed. Instead, you will assist me. There was a second device at Parallax, an audit box or a maintenance console used to observe, not to trigger, the kill routine. The routine was old. The observation was new. Which of you arranged the observation? Answer, and I will be forbearing. Withhold it, and I will be diligent. Vire laughed, because the only defense some men have is echo. You're guessing. I am economizing, Wolfe said. Mr. Rusk. Rusk didn't look at Vire for permission, which I liked about him. We have monitors on our servers, he said. Everyone does. Not like this, Dana said, the first crack in her reserve audible as steel, not glass. This watcher didn't log itself. It sat in the network path, silent with one purpose, to see when the dormant routine activated, so the accusation could be timed to my call and your photograph. Lena's breath caught. It wasn't theatrical. It was the sound people make when a shape in the fog steps closer and they know its name. She recovered enough to turn it into words. Mark, she said very evenly, did you install anything at Parallax last quarter that would do that? Sabin kept the smile, but he moved it to a different face. Lena, darling, consultants recommend. They don't install. Sometimes they do, Rusk said, and now there was the edge of a man who had found an unlogged box in his realm before and hadn't appreciated the joke. Sometimes they tuck things where change control doesn't look. Wolfe inclined his head 1/8 of a degree, which is as near as he gets to applause. We progress, he said. Mr. Sabin, this is your opportunity to demonstrate the difference between subtlety and cowardice. Sabin looked at the photo again, as if it owed him a better angle. When he spoke, the affability dial had clicked 2 ticks downward. If a watcher existed, he said, it would have been approved by security, and if it wasn't, then security failed. Either way, you don't get to make me your scapegoat in a parlor. You misapprehend the room, Wolfe said. This is not a parlor. It is jurisdiction. Mr. Goodwin... I was already standing. The bell rang then, because timing likes to pose as drama, and I went to answer it. On the stoop stood Luis with his dragon sticker scooter helmet under his arm and a shy expression. He held up another manila envelope. The lady gave me this to bring back, he said. Said I should put it in the same place as before. Which lady? I asked. He glanced past me into the hall and saw the company. His eyes found Lena first, then moved to Dana, then to no one. Coat with tiny checks, he said. Shoes that squeak. He offered the envelope, and the room shifted its weight without moving. Wolfe said, Bring it. And I did, with every eye learning how to stare without blinking. I carried the envelope to Wolfe's desk with the delicacy you give unexploded ordnance. He didn't touch it immediately. He regarded it as though it might confess without assistance. Then he motioned me to open it, and I slit it with my thumb. Inside lay a single sheet of onion skin, typed in the same rhythm as the receipt. She cannot prove her innocence, but you can prove your own. Wolfe's nostrils widened, his equivalent of a snarl. He tapped the page with the paper knife, never his fingers. Our intruder grows impertinent. The intention is to shift our position from disinterested arbiter to implicated party. If I admit nothing, I'm evasive. If I deny, I am complicit. Vire let out a short, bright laugh. You see? Someone's having sport. Dana, honestly, it's theatrical. Nobody will take this seriously. Dana's voice was flat. Parallax already has. They circulated the story to their board. My investors are watching. This isn't theater. It's a knife. Lena looked at her, then back at Sabin, then at Wolfe. She spoke slowly. Whoever left that note wanted Luis to return. That's choreography, not impulse. Wolfe inclined his head, just slightly. Correct. Our guest arranged 2 movements. Intrusion, then reinforcement. The first established the scene. The second confirmed the witness. If Mr. Panzer's courier had failed to return, we might never have received this second taunt. It was not risk, it was certainty. Someone close to him knew he would be the messenger again. Sabin smirked, but the corner of his eye ticked. Or maybe he just lives nearby. Phooey, Wolfe said, a cannon shot disguised a syllable. Coincidence is the diet of the indolent. No, this lady with squeaking shoes was expected to hand Luis something later. It was inevitable. Rusk leaned forward, voice even but not neutral, which means she's in this room, or close to one of us. That got silence, thick and hot. Dana didn't move. Lena's jaw was set. Her gaze stayed on Wolfe, as if daring him to pin it there. Vire fiddled with his cufflink, smooth as always, but his rhythm was off by half a beat. Sabin's smirk had to work too hard. I broke it by asking the practical. Do we open this up now, or wait until Panzer puts his hands on it? Wolfe flicked me a glance. We wait. Mr. Panzer will have it sent before the hour's gone. Meanwhile, we test candor. He shifted his weight forward, and the air in the room leaned with him. Miss Park, did you yesterday accompany a courier to my stoop? Lena's lips parted, but not with hesitation. Her reply was even. No. Your shoes squeak. They do not, she said, and shifted a leg just enough that the leather whispered softly on the carpet. No squeak. If someone imitated my coat, I can't help that. Half the city wears herringbone. Wolfe shut his eyes. Too neat, but not impossible. He opened them again, and this time the gaze pinned Sabine. Mr. Sabin, you are adept at implication. Did you arrange this second envelope? Sabin lifted his palms. Wolfe, if I'd staged that, it would have been smarter. You'd be tripping over clues that pointed to Dana in neon. Dana shot him a glance that could have iced coffee. It's already neon, Mark. The question is who flipped the switch. Vire stood, restless, and paced to the bookcase as if the spines owed him encouragement. This is absurd. If any of us wanted Dana gone, we'd do it in the market, not by typing bad theater in your office. Sit, Wolfe said, and Vire sat, though he hated himself for it. Absurdity is a mask. It does not absolve. Our trespasser sought 2 things, to sully me and to condemn Miss Lowell. I will not indulge either. He pressed his palms together. Mr. Goodwin, you will escort our guests out one by one. Give each a copy of the photograph and the first note. Inform them that I expect their candor to improve before tonight. We reconvene tomorrow morning. Sabin chuckled. You're running Discovery as if we're a jury trial. No, Wolfe said. Juries rely on ignorance. I rely on intelligence. That is the distinction. I took them out, each by each. Vire left with his smile restarched, Lena with her spine a rod, Rusk with a grunt that promised he would spend the night combing logs, and Sabin with a shrug that said nothing and everything. Dana lingered. "Wolf," she said quietly, "if they're working together—" "They are not," Wolf cut her off. "They are using each other. An alliance of suspicion, not trust. That fractures easily." She nodded once and left. The door closed and Wolf exhaled, a sound like stone settling. He looked at me. "Saul will bring me what the envelope carries. Until then, Archie, we let them sweat. The guilty do not sleep. They rehearse. Tomorrow they will be worse actors." The phone rang then, sharp against the quiet. I picked up. Saul's voice came across, brisk and edged. "Archie, tell Wolf the second envelope. Same machine, same ribbon, but one difference." The typist hesitated. "Letter P, faint double strike. That's muscle memory, not error. Find out which one of your players rides their P's too hard." I hung up, and Wolf's eyes were already on me. "So," he said softly, "the mask cracks." Wolf's gaze stayed on me, heavy enough to pin me to the carpet. "The letter P," he said, as if the alphabet itself had betrayed him. "It is the most revealing of letters. It demands a lift and a return. Double striking it is a matter of habit, not haste. The typist has carried this flaw across machines." I sat down, flipping through memory like a Rolodex. "So we're looking for someone who types enough to grow lazy with the P, but not enough to fix it. That narrows the field. Via doesn't type his own emails. He dictates. Rusk lives with passwords, but his fingers belong to guns. Dana's precise. I'd have noticed if she mangled keystrokes. Sabin, well, he probably charges extra for every P he hits. That leaves Lena." Wolf inclined his head. "Yes, Miss Park." I raised a brow. But her denial was smooth, Wolf. No blink, no twitch. He rumbled low. "Some liars rehearse silence. Others rehearse sincerity. The squeak of shoes was not hers, but the pressure of habit belongs to her fingers. We require confirmation." The next morning I was dispatched with instructions that wouldn't win a medal for subtlety. "Obtain samples," Wolf said, "without announcing that you obtained them." Which is Archie speak for walking into enemy offices and being personable until paper falls into your pocket. Dana arranged for me to consult with Lena on project documentation. The glass walls of Parallax's headquarters gave us all the privacy of a zoo exhibit. Lena greeted me with a handshake quick enough to sting and handed over a stack of binders with the efficiency of someone who considers conversation an unnecessary plug-in. I played it casual, asked her to send me digital copies of schedules and resource plans. She agreed, sat at her terminal, and typed an email. I leaned back, let my eyes wander while my ears focused. A quick, steady rhythm, but every time she hit the P, there was a faint double tap on the keys. Not loud, but distinct. When the message came through, I opened it on my phone, scrolled, and smiled. Metadata in the headers said she'd typed it locally. No auto-filled templates, and sure enough, in the body of the message, project plan pending. Both P's carried ghosting, a faint duplication in the font where her fingers had overpressed. I thanked her politely, pocketed my evidence, and walked out. As I crossed the lobby, Rusk appeared, blocking my exit like a turnstile. "You're sniffing," he said. "Occupational hazard," I told him. "You should try it. Might keep your air clean." He didn't smile. "Lena's clean. If you're chasing her, you're wasting time." "Then why are you nervous?" I asked. His jaw worked, but he stepped aside. Back at the brownstone, Wolf listened while I described the double strikes, the rhythm, the proof embedded in pixels. He made a sound deep in his throat that was half satisfaction, half reproach. "Predictable," he muttered. "Miss Park is precise until affection intrudes. She believed herself clever enough to imitate and subtle enough to hide, but her hands betray her." Dana sat in the red chair, stiff as a verdict. Lena. My Lena. Her voice cracked just enough to prove she hadn't truly believed it until now. Wolfe shifted toward her. Miss Lowell, loyalty is often the enemy's first recruit. She was your friend, and therefore your leaver. She knew your schedule. She knew how to time the accusation. She thought herself serving another, but she served herself. Envy is a more durable motive than malice. I set the email printout on Wolfe's desk, alongside the taunting notes. Wolfe didn't touch them. He didn't need to. He already had what he wanted. Tomorrow, he said, we summon them again. This time, we will not ask. We will tell. Miss Park will attempt to deny. Mr. Sabin will attempt to shield. Mr. Vire will mock. Mr. Rusk will scowl. But the flaw of a letter is enough. Language unmasks its own betrayer. I leaned back in my chair. And what happens when she cracks? Then, Wolfe said, shutting his eyes with the calm of a man arranging courses in his head, we return civility to this house, and Miss Lowell will learn whether her ruin was averted or merely postponed. The room was quiet except for the faint tick of the clock. Outside, New York busied itself with traffic and noise, but in that office everything narrowed to one inevitability. Tomorrow, Wolfe would lay out the pieces, and Lena Park would learn that no mask survives a typewriter. They came back at 11 because Wolfe asked, and because curiosity bullies pride. Vire arrived first, freshly laundered and smiling like a man who believes the second act exists for his benefit. Rusk followed, dark-suited and tighter at the seams, the look of a man who'd read logs until dawn and had found either too much or not enough. Sabin drifted in with a sigh about traffic that seemed to have detoured through his conscience. Lena came last, exact as a metronome, chin high, coat folded over an arm, herringbone if you're collecting patterns. Wolfe let them sit in the wait he had arranged for them. He had the Remington uncovered and squared on the blotter, the ribbon he had already replaced with our own. On a sheet of onion skin he had typed a single line centered at the top, a courtesy for clarity. The second line waited. "We will be brief," he said. "Courtesy first. Each of you will provide me a line of text. The test is not forensic theater. It is simple accommodation." His eyelids lowered a shade. "Mr. Goodwin will read the sentence. You will type it. You will sign your name beneath it. If this revolts you, abstain now and leave. It will save time." Vire was amused, which made two of them. "I do love an icebreaker." "Your affection," Wolfe said, "is surplus." I stood with a pad. "The sentence," I said, and enunciated for the keys. "Proper people prefer plain pepper." You could feel the P's standing and saluting. Vire rose, took the chair at the Remington like it was a novelty bar stool, and hammered with two index fingers that had signed more term sheets than grocery lists. His P's were timid, not doubled. He didn't trust the machine enough to lean into it. He signed, looping the V like a wave, and stood aside. Rusk went next. He typed the way he moved, economical, wary, no wasted pressure. His P's were soft, a hair under the line as if hitting any key too hard would set off an alarm. He signed with a block print that would have gladdened a drill sergeant. Sabin swept in with a grunt of mock ceremony and typed like a man accustomed to billing by the keystroke. Fast, competent, flashy where unneeded. His P's were neat as coins. He signed with a flourish he hoped we'd admire, and we did not. Lena didn't hurry. She adjusted the chair, squared the onion skin, and set her fingers with a precision that had once belonged to a friendship. She typed with a steady rhythm, almost soothing, except each P gave a faint stutter, a ghosted twin whispering beneath the letter. She signed her name crisply and met Wolfe's gaze like a duel. Dana watched from the red chair without moving. She had trained her face into stillness because anything else would have been too expensive. Wolfe didn't look at the sheets. He didn't need to. He had me lift them and lay them side by side, and the office filled with the soft quiet of conclusions closing their hinges. He folded his hands. "Thank you. Now, precision." He shifted the weight of his attention to Rusk. "Your night was long." Rusk's mouth flattened. "Someone put a watcher on a maintenance segment in Parallax's network last quarter. Not one my team approved. It sat quiet, looking only for a specific call path. When the dormant routine lit yesterday, the watcher called home. Time-stamped exactly inside our strategy call. I didn't see it before because it hides where change control doesn't log." "Home where?" Wolfe asked, though he already owned the answer. Rusk's eyes cut to Sabin. "A throwaway VPS spun up 2 weeks ago, paid through a shell account." He handed me a printout. "The card on file ties to a PO box used by a firm calling itself Meridian Adjustments." Dana's voice was calm, only the knuckles said anything else. "Mark?" Sabin smiled because he had nothing else left that looked like him. "Meridian subcontracts research for a dozen consultants. I send them comparisons. They send me invoices. If someone abused their infrastructure—" "Spare us," Wolfe said without rising above soft. "You arranged the watcher. You were paid by Parallax and by Miss Lowell's firm at different times. You did not scruple to serve both tables. You do not like to be owed. You like to be necessary. The watcher made you necessary because without it, the timing would have been windfall. With it, accusation could be synchronized with theater." Sabin opened his hands. The international signal for bother. Even if a watcher existed. "Fine, your man Rusk found one. Watchers don't type notes in brownstones." "No," Wolfe said, and allowed himself the lightest turn of head. "They need accomplices who have access, motive, and the failure of judgment that envy provides. Miss Park, you had the calendar. You had the friendship to be told the day's shape. You had the key to Miss Lowell. Disappointment. She surpassed you, and she refused a merger you believed would elevate you with her shadow. You could injure her without wetting your hands by lending them." Lena's voice came level and cold. "You are poetic, Mr. Wolfe. It does not make you right. I was on that call. I did not step foot on your stoop." "You did not have to," Wolfe said. "You arranged it. You rehearsed it. You bought the ribbon at Neary's Midtown at 256. Our clerk remembers the man. You sent him to the co-working space with sanitizer that smells like lemons and a price tag gun your office supplies share. You gave him our sentence, but you could not teach him to type like you. For that, you had to touch our machine yourself. Twice. Once to type the receipt. Once for the second taunt. The first shows no hesitation. The second carries the faint double strike on P that Mr. Panzer reports, and Mr. Goodwin heard again this morning when you obliged my courtesy." Lena's eyes didn't flicker. The only motion in her face was thought, running fast. "If I'd typed in your office, my prints—" "On metal, yes," Wolfe said. "And on the ribbon core. They exist. They are not yet at the precinct because I am not done with you." He opened his eyes fully, and the room got smaller. "You will give me the contact who carried your errands, the man from Neary's to the co-working to my stoop. You will give me the account that paid him. You will tell me whether Mr. Vire smiled on this or merely benefited. You will tell me what Mr. Sabin promised you, beyond the tidy gratification of seeing Miss Lowell stumble." Vire laughed at the wrong second. "This is melodrama." "Then applaud," I told him. "And keep still." Rusk sat forward, elbows to knees. His voice came without heat, which made it burn. "Lena, if you did this, I have to report it. If you didn't, you have to say who did. There isn't a third door." Silence is sometimes noise with the battery pulled. You could feel it drain the room. Lena looked at Dana, and you could see the history there. The rough edge where colleagues become friends and then stop. Whatever passed across her face wasn't regret. It was arithmetic finishing its sum. When she spoke, it was to Wolfe, not to Dana. "If I talk," she said, Do I get to keep a life? You may keep the truth, Wolfe said. Life attends those who stop lying to it. Speak. Her gaze moved to Sabin, quick and sharp, and then to Via. He wanted the merger, she said, and the pronoun didn't need a name. I told him Dana would never agree. Mark said there were ways to make her flexible. I told him no. He said there were ways to make a board doubt her. He asked me for her calendar and the call link. I gave it. He said he'd handle the rest. I met the courier once. I didn't go to your house. Sabin's smile broke and showed the wire underneath. Lena, quiet, she said, with a precision I hadn't heard since the first week of a friendship. You used me. I employed a willing colleague, he said, trying on dignity. It didn't fit. Wolfe's voice was a chord tightening. Name, Miss Park. She looked back to Wolfe and gave it. A name we hadn't heard. A neighbor to the co-working space. A freelance fixer who knew which doors didn't mind being held. Who had a dragon sticker 2 blocks from Nery's and a reason to like cash. Wolfe nodded once, as if the geometry had snapped into place. He lifted a hand, not to dismiss, but to conclude. Mr. Goodwin, he said, Saul will fetch our fixer. Mr. Rusk will escort Miss Park to her office to surrender her devices and her resignation. Mr. Via will call his board and confess what he did not stop. Mr. Sabin will remain seated. We are not yet finished measuring him. The brownstone had weathered its share of storms, but that morning the air was dense enough to hold shape. Sabin stayed in his chair, arms draped like ropes, trying to project calm and achieving fatigue. Lena had gone with Rusk, spine straight, carrying her confession like a parcel she didn't want to open. Via had made the necessary call, his voice on the line cracking only once, not from guilt, but from the indignity of exposure. That left Sabin, our last stone in the wall. Wolfe sat as if carved, hands resting on the arc of his middle, eyes half closed. The silence had thickened to the point where even Sabin must have felt it pressing. At length, Wolfe opened his eyes. Mr. Sabin, your predicament is simple. You engaged a courier to tamper with my office, employed Miss Park as your unwitting accomplice, and installed a watcher on Parallax's network, all to synchronize accusation with theater. You hoped the appearance of inevitability would be enough to ruin Miss Lowell. You overlooked one fact. Inevitability collapses the moment it is examined. Sabin shifted, but his smile didn't lift this time. You don't have evidence that would hold in court. Pfui. I have enough to hold in this office, which is where you erred in trespassing. Miss Park has given your name. Mr. Panzer will shortly produce the courier. Mr. Rusk has traced the watcher to your shell, and the notes typed on my Remington carry your script. Yet your vanity was not satisfied to leave it at that. You had to dress it in words only you would use. Weaponizing gentlemen, an affectation peculiar to you. Sabin leaned back, trying for a shrug and finding only the edge of defeat. Consultants make enemies, Wolfe. It comes with a fee. You mistake yourself, Wolfe said softly. An enemy is earned. You have merely been unmasked. Dana stood, her voice clear and even, though her hands were white at the knuckles. So this ends with me vindicated and him walking out. No, Wolfe said. This ends with you shielded from ruin. Mr. Sabin will not walk out untouched. Mr. Goodwin will escort him to Inspector Kramer with the ribbon, the carbon, and Miss Park's testimony. They will decide whether to call it sabotage, fraud, or attempted extortion. You will decide whether to sue for damages. Either course will suffice. The point, Miss Lowell, is that the smear collapses. Sabin's lips twitched as if he wanted to argue, but there was no space left for words. He let me guide him to the door, shoulders hunched now, as though some invisible weight had found him. When I came back, Dana was still standing, not quite steady, watching Wolfe as if he might dissolve the moment she looked away. I don't know how to thank you, she said. Wolfe opened his eyes a fraction wider. Gratitude is superfluous. My house was used without consent. That was intolerable. You happened to be protected in the course of rectifying it." Her mouth tightened, then softened. "Even so, I owe you." "You owe me nothing," Wolfe said, "except discretion. Say nothing of me in this matter. Leave your vindication to your records, not to the press." She nodded, understanding, and left. The door closed, and silence settled. Again, the true resident of the brown stone. I leaned against the desk. "Neat, Wolfe. You got them all to play their parts, and you tied it off without lifting anything heavier than a paper knife." He shut his eyes. "As it should be. Action is for those who lack words." Fritz chose that moment to glide in and announce lunch, pheasant with morel sauce. Wolfe stirred, the only sign of satisfaction he'd allow. As I followed Fritz toward the dining room, I tossed back, "Funny thing about a kill switch. It's supposed to shut everything down, but in this case, it lit everything up." Wolfe grunted. "Kill switches are the tools of the crude. The mind, Mr. Goodwin, requires no switch. It simply decides." And with that, he rose, slow and monumental, moving toward his table as if the world had returned to its proper orbit. The brown stone had been disturbed, tested, and restored, and once again, Nero Wolfe had proved that no scheme, however clever, survives being held still long enough for him to look at it.